Once upon a time, bad bitch Eva Villain lived in the city.
Today I'm doing an Asian store snack grocery haul, and these are just snacks. Maybe I will specifically do one for, meat and for like a meat haul, but today we're doing strictly Asian snacks. Specifically, majority of it is Japanese, and this is from my shopping haul to from my visit to Owajimaya. Owajimaya is a Japanese store that you can find in Oregon and in Washington, and I don't know where else, but definitely I know in Oregon and in Washington you can find an Owajimaya store. So I grew up on a tiny island that used to be owned by Japan, and then that all changed when World War II came around and America won the war, World War II. So America claimed our island. Before World War II, the island was colonized and owned by numerous other countries, Germany for once, but we're going to concentrate on Japan. So after Germany, Japan owned the island, and that was during like my grandfather and my great grandfather's generation. The islands had schools that were teaching everything strictly Japanese. So a lot of our food and some of our words and some of our customs are very much heavily influenced by that period when Japan did own the islands. So my grandfather from my mother's side, for example, he spoke fluid Japanese and Latin. My grandfather from my mom's side spoke really multiple languages. And then my grandmother from my paternal side, she and I think they read Japanese. My grandfather did too, but definitely I knew my grandmother from my paternal side. She read Japanese. She spoke fluent Japanese. She read Japanese because she used to crochet, fine needle crochet, crochet things off of a Japanese crochet book. And one of my memories from childhood as a little girl, I can't remember how old I was. I must have been like 6 or 7. And I remember being at my grandmother's house, my paternal grandmother's house. And I was a little girl, and all I remember are these old Japanese men seated around my grandparents' kitchen table. And I remember these old Japanese men, their heads were completely shaved. They were all bald. And when I think back now, what they looked like were monks. You know how you see those Hare Krishna monks? That's what they looked like, except they weren't dressed in those orange robes, but their hair, their head was just completely bald, and it was like 5 or 6 men seated around my grandparents' kitchen table, and they were Japanese. And then that's a memory that is just really strong in my mind. And what I didn't know it then, but what my mom probably explained to me later is that those were Japanese priests that had come to the island to collect the bones of the war dead. That period, my memory was probably from the early 70s. But what people didn't realize back on the island back then is that how did you know that the bones you were gathering, how do you know for sure accurately back in the 70s that you were gathering the bones of the war dead of Japanese or the war dead of American soldiers? So that's something that dawned on me like years ago, in regards to the collection of these war dead. But like I said, that was back in the late 60s, early 70s when that was going on. I think there are more precautionary measures now, and there are certain groups like task force. There is like one US group. I don't know if there are others, but I know of one off the top of my head. The organization is called Task Force Dagger, and they are a group of, I think, retired militants, retired military people that go out and they do recover these remains of the war dead, and you know, and bring them back for proper burial. And I think they do extensive testing in regards to those remains. But I'm sorry, I tend to stray all the time. So let's get started. The first, and these are just some, there are just more snacks that I did get, but we ended up eating before I did this vlog. So I'm gonna start off first with some of the snacks that I ate as a little girl. So this means that these were snacks that we were eating back in the 70s. And you know, the interesting thing is, we were eating these like back in the 70s, but some of these things are just fairly, and my children too were eating it like back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Early 90s, and some of these snacks are just recently becoming popular. But some of those snacks that are recently becoming popular, the Asian snacks, there are snacks that we've been eating since the 90s, and for me, for example, some of them since the early 70s. So one of the Japanese snacks that I ate as a little girl is this botan rice candy, and this is this has like a, and this is what this looks like. And we've been eating this since the early 70s. And back in the old days, these were two separate boxes, and this box would hold a tiny prize in it. But nowadays, this is what it comes with. It comes with a sticker, and this is what the candy looks like. So you do take it out of, so you remove it from the main wrapper. You definitely don't eat the main wrapper. And what it does is it comes with this tiny paper wrapping around it, and you eat that. And that just melts in your mouth. And it's just extremely soft, chewy. It's kind of like a gummy caramel. But it's very subtle in the sweetness of it. And my daughters also grew up eating this. Everything that I ate as a little girl, Japanese wise, my daughters also grew up eating it. And then my great granddaughters, when I introduced them to this for the first time when they were little, they did take a moment, a second or two, because of the paper. They were wondering, Nana, are we going to eat the paper too? And I said, yeah, you eat the paper too. So they are very much aware now of this candy, and that you do eat the second layer. You don't eat the main wrapper, but you do eat this second layer of rice paper. So good. The second thing I grew up eating as a little girl is this, and I know, like rice crackers, we call this sembe. That's what we call it. Back on the island, everything like this is called sembe. We call it sembe. And in particular, this brand, Maruquillos. This is the sembe brand that's been on the island for generations and generations. And like, this is the hardest brand to find in the United States and I was really surprised to see that Uwajimaya carried this brand, because not all Asian stores carry this brand, and this is a brand that's just been around for generations and generations. So this is and this type of sembe Maruquillos